You're listening to the Oh My God podcast. Here, we talk about all things godly, all things womanly, and nothing is off limits. I am Zelda, your host, and together with my special guest, we will begin to uncover and discover what it really means to be a Jewish woman today. See you inside. Hello, Rebbetzin Rochie Pinson. Thank you so much for doing this podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. This is
such
great.
A pleasure to have you here. I'm so excited. This season, we call it Covered in Faith. And we're going to talk all about hair covering. But to start, you are famously known as like the Challah queen.
Yes.
I
can't get away from that.
It's amazing. I literally learned Challah from you. That's really the first time, my first hands-on experience was with you in a Challah bake,
right,
which was amazing. And you travel all over to do these Challah bakes. You wrote Challah cookbooks.
Yes. Two,
right? One for kids.
Two, yes. The second one that came out a few years ago, yeah.
So amazing. Kids, Such an amazing, also inspiring, not just recipes, but also...
That was the idea, yeah.
So brilliant. And so I would love to, before we go into hair covering, talk a little bit about the journey of Challah, where that started for you. How did you get into making this into this worldwide sensation?
Yeah. It's funny. It's not the kind of thing that, when you talk about what you want to be when you grow up, know, like, a Challah career was never came up somehow. But life happens and, sometimes doors open and you go with it. So yeah, actually it's funny because you were telling me before we started the conversation that you grew up and you didn't have homemade challah at home.
Right.
So neither did I. And people are usually shocked to hear that because they think obviously this is so easy for you. You grew up with this, probably your mom made this every week. And no. So we did have challah, but it was from a bakery.
Same.
And the irony of that is that I grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia. So we actually had nothing kosher there. My parents are the Chabad shluchim there. And we were the only kosher keeping family for a long time there. And my mother had to make every single thing from scratch. So she, if we wanted cheese, you went to the farm and you milked the cow and you brought home the milk and you made it into so literally every single thing we ate was homemade. Looking back, that was a really good thing. Right. But the only thing they had in Vancouver that was kosher was this tiny little hole-in-the-wall bakery, and the only thing they sold was challah.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And the funny thing is that for my mom, that was the biggest gift because she tried making challah once. It was early in her marriage, and it was a very, very bad story. I don't know. She doesn't like to talk about it. It involved her mother-in-law, and she just my father says it was so bad. The challah was so bad. They put it on the fire escape in Brooklyn for the birds. Oh, wow. The birds would not eat. It was that bad.
That's hysterical.
So she just decided that was it. She got scared off. She had, challah PTSD, whatever. And she decided she doesn't make challah. And then Hashem was very kind to her and took her to a place that she had to make every single thing from scratch.
Right. It's so ironic.
Yeah. So that's how I grew up. So I thought you have to make everything from scratch and challah grows in the bakery.
That is so funny.
And so,
was the challah good from the bakery?
I thought it was. It was the only challah I knew growing up and I loved it.
Right.
I think it was really good, but it was bakery challah. There's nothing like homemade.
Right.
No, as good as a bakery can be, can never be homemade challah. So that's how, I grew up not knowing how to make challah. And then I was newly married. Didn't even consider making challah as something that people did. It didn't even occur to me. And then my husband and I went to Japan for Merkez Shluchas, essentially. They needed a rabbi. They didn't have the community, the rabbi had left and they had nobody. And they called Chabad headquarters and were like, can you send us someone? It was almost Rosh Hashanah and they were like, we need a rabbi. So my husband and I went. And it was great. It was an adventure. We were really excited about it. And then we got there a few days before Rosh Hashanah and we're sitting with the community, the president and whatever. And then I ask him, because I'm all of 21 years old. I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm like, so where do we buy the challah in Kobe? And he was like, no. Wow. And Kobe, the Rebbetzin, makes the challah for the whole community.
Wow.
So that's how I started. That was my first foray into this whole challah thing. Wow. I went into that kitchen and I made challah, and it was like a huge mess, and I had no idea what I was doing, and it worked.
Wow.
It's like beginner's luck. It was amazing. The challah came out amazing. At least I thought so.
Right.
But it was also such an amazing experience for me, just sharing that challah that I made with it's like I didn't even know like I could do this, and it was such a challenge, and I overcame it, and it was a success. And when I shared the challah, like it felt like I was sharing a part of myself.
Wow.
And it felt really good. Like it felt like it fulfilled something very deep in me.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, I think I should make challah.
Right.
I think this is like a thing I should do. So I came back to New York. We were there for the whole Tishrei for the month, and then we came back and started life, and life gets busy, marriage, career, babies, like the whole thing. So we started a community, and I was like, no matter what, I just went back in my kitchen every week and I did it. And it grew.
Yeah.
It grew on me, and it grew with me. And then when we went on our shlichus, like when we started our own community in downtown Brooklyn, I found that it was like the thing that every woman was called to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I really relate to that, because I also had no experience with challah making at all. And you know what, you don't know what you don't know. Like you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah.
And then I started making it, and it's like this real feeling. First of all, it's like a full body experience, which is so healing in itself. Yeah. And what do you feel like? I feel it like in my body. Like, what do you feel? What have you learned about challah? That's like, it's like that.
How many hours do you have?
I know, right? You're the challah queen.
The challah I could talk about all day long.
But for people that didn't try it, other than that, it fulfilled something within you, like in terms of like the mitzvah, because we're going to get into hair covering as well. Yeah. And these are some of the basic mitzvahs pertaining to a woman. Yeah. Is challah, nida, and hadlakas haneros. Right. Candle lighting. So, just something small that you could share about challah before we go into that. Maybe, something that people may have not heard. Yeah. Well, one thing that you said, which is very true and very powerful, is that it's a very embodied mitzvah. Yeah. It's really, and really all the mitzvahs of the woman are very embodied. True. Women are embodied. We're malchus, like we're the quality, and this goes into the hair covering, that we're very sensual. Women we work with our senses. And so the physical experience of the mitzvah is very important. So there's really two aspects to challah, because there's the making of the dough, right? There's the braiding, there's the whole process, and then there's the mitzvah. Right. And they really are, even though we kind of do them together, they're two experiences, because the mitzvah you can do on a dough that someone else makes for you. You don't have to make the dough. Right. But it is such a big part of the experience. So I really speak to both of those elements, like the point of the mitzvah and how powerful that is and how that relates, and also the experience of putting together that dough. And really just connecting. So first there's the connection to our food, to feeding our family, to like really reconnecting with that. Because so much of what we do these days is like so immediate and instant. And, we want to find the fastest way to make everything happen. And even in the kitchen when we're cooking, it's like quick, and it's just really like, we do everything like as quickly as possible. Even when we're cooking, and it's not fast food, it's still fast compared to how our ancestors cooked. Or even your mother. Yeah, or even my mother, exactly. Right. Immediate ancestors. Yeah. But challah is a process, and it's very powerful to get involved in that process and really like get your hands in the dough, like really like work with the dough, braid it, shape it. You're really involved. Yeah. And you're feeding your family, and it's not just feeding them physically, but you're feeding them spiritually, because it's not your daily bread. It's something that's like gonna make Shabbos special and the Yom Tovim special. It's like you're really bringing Kedusha, you're bringing that awareness into your home. So the experience of making it and every ingredient that goes into it, that whole experience is so powerful. But then the mitzvah itself, of course, is like the peak
of it. And that really speaks to us as the Kohen Gadol of our home. And that's the idea that like we are the embodiment of what the role of the Kohen was in the world. So once upon a time, you know, we had this Beis HaMikdash and we had this place that was this place of holiness that we would go to. And the Kohen served as sort of our conduit between us and Hashem, between us and godliness. And it was like that service of godliness in the home. And it was a messy job.
Right.
Like there's a beautiful saying that the praise of the Kohanim is that they were up to their knees in blood. Like it was dirty work. Like they were doing the offerings and they were sweeping and they were like, there was a lot of very physical labor involved, but they were doing God's work. They were creating this space for godliness in the world.
Wow.
And the 3 mitzvahs of the woman, they actually mirror the avodah, the work of the Kohen in the Beis HaMikdash. They are like the remnants of what's left. So like the fact that we go to the mikvah, like we're the only ones who carry out this idea of tahara, of purity in the world. Like we are the last ones.
Wow.
So we're carrying out, this was the job of the Kohen, right? To like purify people. And that's our role. I mean, the lighting the candles for Shabbos really goes back to the menorah. In the Beis HaMikdash, the idea was to create like this environment of light and holiness and this ambiance of Kedusha. And that's what we do in our home. So we're creating environment and we're bringing purity. And then of course the Challah is like the korban. And that's like, it's the remnant of the korbanos that we carry out in our own home. So it's like literally with our mitzvahs, we are the high priestess of this home that we're creating that's not a house. It's this like eternal place for Hashem's presence in this world.
That's so powerful. So powerful, especially just like the reframe, because like, especially when we, you know, we get into the habit of things that we just do year after year after year.
Day after
and we
day
forget,
after day.
and we just forget like how powerful it is. So just even focusing on that, like that we are like the Kohen of our house is so empowering.
And you know, there's this idea that like, what's the most powerful pasuk in the Torah that like embodies, encapsulates what Judaism is? We say it in the prayers every day. Kevasa echad baboker, kevasa echad b'narbayim. That we bring one offering in the morning and one offering in the evening. And this is the ultimate in Yiddishkeit. It's like showing up. Showing up every single day. And that's the hardest work. And that's the work of the woman. It's literally the presence, like being there, showing up. And all the work that we do, really, it's like, it's private, it's internal, it's connected to the home and the family. It's not, like I'm saying, the work that we do, especially as women in Judaism.
Yeah.
It's inner work.
It's inner work and it's in the home, exactly. Which there isn't like, that is at least for me, it's hard to reconcile that with like my desire to do the outreach, to do the shlochas, to go out, even business wise. And then to say, wait, what's the priority here? What, you know, constantly, every day, it's like I'm faced with those choices.
That struggle. Yeah.
But that's a great segue into the hair covering. And I love how it's still connected, because it's still connected to nida, like the marriage, meaning hair covering is a mitzvah for a married woman specifically. And even though it's not the mikvah itself, but it's connected to that experience of being married and covering our hair.
Absolutely.
Has your relationship shifted at all from when you just got married to hair covering to now? Was it ever hard for you at all to cover your hair, or is it just something that you knew that you were going to do?
Yeah, so definitely there's shift. I mean, everything has to shift, right? Like, God forbid, I'm married almost 30 years. It cannot be the same. So I think like in the beginning, it was very much just, you know, I was young. This is what I was raised. My mother was very careful about covering her hair. So I was raised in a home that I never saw my mother's hair. Like she always had her hair covered in some way, whether with the scarf, you know, with the tichel, with the sheitel, but she always had it covered. And it just felt very natural to me. And like, that's when you get married, that's the process. There was definitely moments in the beginning where, you know, it's a huge adjustment. I I had one moment of crying which I think like every young bride like sits down, because I had this idea, and this was 30 years ago, the wigs were not
so different
as good as they are today. And I always had a very original hairstyle. Like I used to wear my hair like really short and chic, and like this little like mushroom thing, which was like a thing, I guess, back then. Or maybe not, maybe it was just my thing, but so I remember sitting it's like so clear, it's like these very visceral memories, sitting in the chair. And I was like, I really want one wig that just looks exactly like my hair. And the what do we call the Scheitelmachers? I mean, do they call them that still?
The Scheitelmacher.
Scheitelmacher, it's so funny. It's like a throwback to like a shtetl term, but we still use it.
And 30 years ago, that was probably much, and it was harder than today.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you still were getting synthetic. Like you would get maybe one real, but you'd also get synthetic wigs.
Right.
Like no one's getting synthetic wigs these days, really.
There are some communities that specifically want synthetic.
synthetic. Yes, right.
To look less natural.
Right. Yeah. But if you're trying to go natural today, you wouldn't go with synthetic.
No.
But I remember this was going to be my synthetic wig, because it was going to be short and cute. And she was like, yes, I'm going to make it look exactly like your hair. And I put it on, and it was not exactly my hair. I mean, like I had it shaved up the back, like I had like a funky hairstyle. It was not going to look like that.
Right.
So there was definitely a moment there where I got emotional. I mean, it's an emotional time anyways, getting married and starting. Everything is so new. So there was that emotion, but then I had a very good experience of where I was wearing it around the house, just to like get used to it, and I think it was like somebody came to the house to actually bring a wedding gift. It was like probably a week before my wedding or something. I was walking around the house with it, just like, and she didn't realize I was wearing a wig. She thought it was my hair. And that was like, so I was like, oh, okay. Like I don't look like a freak of nature, maybe so that was good. And I think a big part of the process, really like what shifted a lot, was feeling very comfortable about the fact that I was wearing a wig. Like at the beginning, I was horrified that anyone should know that it was a wig. Like that was like my big fear. Like would someone realize that I'm wearing a wig, and that would be embarrassing. But I guess when you're 21, a lot of things are embarrassing, and you're like, I guess it was a symptom also of not embracing the mitzvah fully or getting the beauty of it. So even though I felt comfortable in myself to cover my hair, I didn't necessarily want someone else to know that I was wearing a wig.
Yeah, that's a huge shift. And I think it does come with age and maturity and learning about it.
Yeah.
I've had that experience where like in my second marriage, when I had to make that decision of like, I'm going to cover my hair, because there's a part of me that just muscle memory. Like, like everything is just like doing it again from memory, from habit, not from like conscious decision. Yeah. So when I really made that, I committed to learning about it, because the more I learn about it, the more excited and inspired I am about it. Right. Even though there are still so many questions and, people, because I'm in the wig world, this is what I do every day.
Probably get a lot of this.
Yeah, a lot of questions of if it looks so natural and all of this, and really dissecting the mitzvah from the two parts of where it's a mitzvah to cover your hair as a married woman, and then there's the concept of erva, which is like that the hair of a married woman becomes erva, but it's separate from the actual mitzvah of covering your hair. And I think that a lot of people, at least the ones that I encounter, feel that if the hair, that the wig looks like, first of all, there's the concept where some people say that the wig itself is not a covering if it's like see-through, or if it's not like a full covering, like a sheitel can't be a full covering. Someone told me this week, because it's like hair covering hair. It's like, let's say challah covering challah, like as a challah cover, like you can't cover challah with challah. You need a covering. So there's so many like people.
If you have something that looks like challah, you can cover.
Right, like let's say a painting.
Because hair that needs to be covered is only hair that grows out of your head.
Right.
And we could talk about like why that is. But like hair, once it's not attached to a head, doesn't have the power that hair has.
Wow.
So it really is dafka covering hair that grows out of your head, and not the fact that it is
actual hair.
Hair without being attached to the body doesn't have that power.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, yeah.
So that's good. That's good to know. Right. And even though there are lots of different communities that hold in different
there are
ways,
many
like
different ways to
specific,
cover hair.
like
Yeah.
mitzvahot, that they're not allowed to wear wigs,
Right.
or the Rebbe really encouraged us to wear wigs and not tichels so much.
Right. And it's important to know why as well.
So
It's important to understand.
yeah. So from what I know
Yeah.
is like when I think of myself as wearing a tichel, I know that a lot of my hair is showing. Versus like in certain communities in, let's say in Israel, where they're super, like there's no strands sticking out. Like I'm sure that's totally acceptable.
Right.
But I'm curious if you, what
I don't
you know.
think that was the Rebbe's reasoning when he spoke about it. It was really very much about the human aspect of it, that a woman needs to feel beautiful. And he actually gave the example that if President Eisenhower would walk in to the room and a woman was wearing a shmat on her head, or a scarf, she might take it off because she'd be embarrassed that she's covering her hair with a shmata or whatever.
Right.
And if a woman's wearing a wig, she'll never take it off in public. So it was more about the sensitivity to how a woman should feel wearing that, like that you should be able to go to work and feel good, feel like you have hair, feel like you are not embarrassed. And because if you are embarrassed, then in all likelihood, if the situation calls for it, it'll come off.
Right.
So of course there's the mitzvah aspect of like wearing a wig ensures you'll keep it on, but it also really speaks to the human aspect of like how a woman feels about her hair and about having hair.
And her femininity.
Right,
so
and her
connected.
femininity too.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I find that there are a lot of women who do the mitzvah like because it's the mitzvah. It's like just so like bittul to the mitzvah. They're doing what Hashem wants, which is so beautiful and so special to see that when I have women doing that. But I find that because specifically that the Rebbe encouraged wigs, it's a woman that's not necessarily connected to her femininity. Like she wouldn't be going to, if let's say wigs, hair covering wasn't a thing in our world, she wouldn't be the one to make an appointment in a salon to get her hair cut or highlighted.
Interesting.
But when she needs to get a wig, it's like all of a sudden she's there in physically being present with hair, which one looks good, which one doesn't.
Thinking about herself, thinking about making herself look more beautiful.
And it's a mitzvah. Not only is it just a haircut, it's literally a mitzvah to now start fussing about the baby hair, the color, this, that, which is very interesting.
I love that. I love how you bring that. I never thought about that aspect of it.
I recently realized that.
But it's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's hidden mitzvah.
That's what, that's to me, I realized like, wow, the Rebbe, obviously I'm sure there's so much that I don't understand what the Rebbe intended, but I thought about that and I'm like, wow, that's, like a woman with 7 little kids, if it's just about the mitzvah, throw on a shmata, and that's it. On to the next thing, on the next appointment, the next chore.
Exactly.
So that was very, very, like, I was happy when I had that thought because it really made sense to me.
Yeah, and it's very holy work that you're doing. I mean, the fact that you are helping women to fulfill this mitzvah in the most beautiful way, that they could feel good about it and they feel empowered and feel beautiful.
And feel like themselves, really.
Yeah. That's very important.
Like you said, the transition in the beginning is hard, especially when you're going from one thing to another. It's a total transition.
Exactly.
But it's so true that when we really embrace the mitzvah, like fully, and there's so many levels, obviously, and I'm sure there's endless levels. But when we realize that we're fully embracing it more than before, it becomes like I don't care that people realize that I'm wearing a wig.
Yeah.
It used to be that I cared.
And in a way, it's actually nice. I love when people. Yesterday I was in Home Goods and and a woman came up to me and she's like, "I love your haircut." It wasn't actually this wig. It wasn't. I wear a lot of different wigs. I have a lot of fun with it, but it was like a short. More like, fun. And she was like, "I love your haircut. Where did you get your haircut?" And I was like, "Actually, it's a wig."
Right.
And she's like, "Oh, you didn't have to tell me that." She like was embarrassed for me. I was like, "No, I'm happy to tell you that I'm wearing a wig." And it was so funny. And then I was thinking, I'm coming to speak to you about wigs tomorrow. And then I was thinking how funny, like to think back to when I was newly married, and like how worried I was that someone would know as a wig, and now I'm so happy to tell a person that I'm covering my hair because I feel like it can open the conversation.
Exactly. It's an opportunity for connection yeah, exactly. And I think that has to do with getting more and more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Like I was speaking to a woman and she doesn't even want to tell people, like she's in a non-Jewish environment.
Right.
So she doesn't want to bother them with like her kosher diet, even though she keeps kosher. And I was thinking, like, the more you embrace it within yourself, the more it's not only embarrassing, it's actually exciting to be like, oh, I actually have this diet and this is, you know.
First of all, it's freeing. Yeah. Because if you feel like you're hiding something, you're never going to be fully comfortable. You'll never be able to be present. But just like it's an opportunity to show people the beauty of Yiddishkeit and people respect you for it, you know, when you embrace it and you do it with joy. And
that's so true. In terms of hair covering, is for people who are not yet in that space of embracing it fully and they're still uncomfortable or they're still in the place where they're annoyed that they don't look like themselves or that they don't feel like themselves. And you know, it's sometimes uncomfortable. It's not your hair. You don't get to put it in a bun or just run out. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you like, some tips to be able to get there? More comfortable, more at ease with it?
Well, you know, like you said, the more you learn about it, the more you understand the beauty of it and the importance of it and the spirituality behind it. Right. So the more connected you become to the mitzvah, the less optional it becomes. The more it becomes like, okay, I'm going to do this, so how? And in life, whenever we're determined to do something, we find a way to do it. And we find a way to make it comfortable for ourselves, to make it pleasant, for some people, it's always gonna, you know, some people are very sensory, right? And they're always gonna really feel it. And so for them, they might have to wear a scarf. They might have to find some kind of a head covering. They need to find their way to cover their hair that is proper, but feels right to them and makes sense to them. But I think that when something is really, you know, it's like taking care of our babies. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not easy, right. But when there's such a love and we realize like that this whole baby's life is in our hands and what we're doing is so important and it's forever, then I mean, we miss our sleep, right. but you know, we're not gonna like not take care of the baby so we could sleep. We're going to take care of it. We're going to figure out a way to make it work. And I think that's, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely a good perspective to have. Like, I loved what you said, that you're just, when you know that this is what needs to be done, you just, it's like how. And thank God now, more than ever, there's so many amazing options.
So many options. If you really want to make it work, you know. Yeah. And this is where we should be spending our money. And this is where we should be putting in our effort. Right. This is the Hidur mitzvah. It's like the most beautiful thing. You know, beautify and make the mitzvah beautiful for you personally.
So important. Now, in terms of the spiritual aspect. How do you understand the wig, the hair covering?
There's a basic halacha to cover hair, right? And there's sources in the Torah that, you know, indicate that a married woman would cover her hair. And just to go historically first, women always covered their hair. It's very fascinating. You know, we talk about it now, like in every religion, in every culture, in every country around the world, there is some form of head covering. Yeah. So there's some kind of an deeper understanding that hair has a certain power, and there's so much ritual, cultural stuff surrounding hair. So that's kind of like, people know it. They just, you know, it's like how people have like a relationship with their hairdresser, and you know this. Like when you're touching someone's hair, when you're working with their hair, there's like an intimacy. There's something very deep connection that happens. Yeah. So we know that there's something about hair. Like even like if you're walking around and you have no idea, you know that there's something about hair. So spiritually, you know, there's the halacha. Right. But then there's like the whole spiritual understanding of it. And that goes to like, what is hair, particularly hair on the head. Mm-hmm. So in this world, right, everything that we see in a physical form is a manifestation of a spiritual reality, right? There's some light that's coming into the world, Hashem's light that is manifesting in this particular way, and it tells us something about its spiritual form by observing its physical form, just like water, for example, right, is purifying. Water cleans us physically. Spiritually, it also can purify us. It could change us from one state to another. It's the fact that it flows and it's unified relates to the idea that it comes from a state of chesed. And that, Geshem, which is rain, is water, but it's water as it appears in Gevurah, because it comes in separate drops. So separation, anytime something is separated, it indicates a level of Gevurah, of judgment, of dinim, of boundaries, and not unified chesed. So there's these ideas in the world, and then we look at our body and we look at the elements in our body, and we can see their spiritual source by the way they manifest physically. So hair has a lot of interesting things about it. First of all, it's very separate. Every single hair grows in a separate follicle, right? So they're very separate strands. The hair itself is a hollow tube, right? Each hair is like a pipe. It's a hollow tube. And it grows from our head, the seat of our mind. So all of these elements tell us something about the hair on the head and its power. So first of all, it also has a limited life force, right? So hair is alive and it grows. It grows very quickly, in fact. Actually, it's like the most replicating cell, right? Which is why, that's why when, God forbid, if a person's on chemo, the first thing they lose is their hair, because it's like the fastest growing cell. So hair has life, but it doesn't have nerves. Like you can cut hair, it doesn't hurt. It's a very limited life force. It grows, but it's not alive in the same way that other elements of our body are. Whenever something has limited life force, life is kedusha, life is holiness, and something that is not alive is tameh. It's closed off. The word tameh is satum, means closed off. It means that there's no possibility for life, for growth, for hope. So anything that's in that category is tameh. Anything that's in the category of life is tahar, is purity. So hair being somewhere in the middle, that it's alive but very limited life force, means that the energy that can attach itself to it could go either way. So it can attract negative energy as well, because it's alive, but it's limited. So it can attract something that's trying to leech onto a life force, but is not holy. The fact that it is a hollow tube indicates that it's almost a conduit of energy, right? It's like a pipeline of energy that goes directly into our minds. Wow. And our minds are our largest sex organ, right? Our mind, it's the seat of everything, but our sexuality really, it comes from the mind. Chassidus speaks about this a lot, right? That it all begins in the mind. So it's coming from our head, it's limited life force, and it's energetically attracting energy. So hair has a lot of power. We talk about women covering their hair. According to Kabbalah, men have to cover their hair as well. Men have to cover their hair, but they also have to cut it. Kabbalistically, a man is supposed to wear his hair very short, like cut almost to the head. Oh, wow. And he's supposed to cover it. Wow. A woman is supposed to have hair. So
she's supposed to grow
to grow hair.
Wow.
Women, and the Rebbe used to speak about this, that a woman has to have at least a tefach of hair.
Right.
At least a hand's breadth of hair. Hair is so important to us as women, so important to who we are and how we express ourselves and the sensuality of who we are. Hair is very, very important. And so we're meant to have hair. Right. We can have that energy, but it needs to be contained. It needs to be covered so that it's contained and it's directed. Right. So of course, when a girl is not yet aware of herself in this way, she's not attracting that type of energy. She doesn't feel herself that way. She's not open to that kind of energy. Once a person is in a relationship and they become aware of themselves in this way, then there's the potential to attract that energy. If our hair is uncovered, then we are potentially attracting energy from unwanted sources. And it can go both ways. Our energy out towards unwanted sources and energy coming in towards us from unwanted sources. So covering our hair is really about directing our sexuality. It's really about directing our focus on one person. And that is Kedusha, that is holiness, is the boundaries in a relationship that we create. And that is, so covering the hair is very powerful. And really, I think I really began to appreciate covering hair once I sort of understood this idea. Because norms have changed. So it used to be cultural norm to cover your hair. And in those days, covering your hair was obvious, right? I mean, even up until the 50s and 60s, I mean, women didn't wear their hair down unless they were like a little bit of a loose, right? Woman, like if a woman was a proper woman, she would wear her hair up, especially once she was married. You know, the expression, let your hair down. Letting your hair down, what does that mean? It means like letting yourself loose, letting yourself just be very natural, right? A woman didn't do that in public. She, you know, first they used to cover. Then once they weren't covering, they still wore their hair up or short or contained. So there was always this awareness that our hair has a lot of energy. And if you're a married woman, then that energy is sacred to one person.
Wow, this is so powerful. Like I've heard little bits of this, but never like this. And it's just so potent, you know, if you, like what you said before, like once you know it, then it's like, how do I do it? Not, it's like, and what's so fascinating is like today in society, there's like buzzwords of, you know, like aura cleanse and cleanse your aura, protect your energy. If only people understood women, that this is the best way to protect your energy. You know, the best aura cleanse. Is,
I mean, and your hair, it's like there's so much power there. Like you want to protect that. You want to keep it sacred. You don't want to invite in unwanted energies from people that are not supposed to be in that type of relationship with you. And that's so. You know, people, of course, always talk about this, like, but shaitels are so beautiful. We're supposed to be attractive. We're women. It's part of who we are. We're supposed to be attractive. And really, it comes down to each person on a personal level, like deciding. And that really goes to the whole tznius aspect. That's nothing to do with covering hair. So like people confuse the whole covering your hair and tznius thing. They're two different things. There's covering your hair. That is one thing. And then there's tznius, and tznius is a very personal journey. It comes, hatzne lalachas im Hashem elakacha. It's like walk modestly with God. That's where it comes from, this idea of tznius. And it's not about a particular bone that is covered or uncovered. It's not about it's about a way of being, a way of privacy, of like intimacy in our life, of like not living everything outward. And these days, like everyone's like, there's a lot of like living your life very publicly, and everything is on social media and everything is photographed and everything is, and then there's this like hatzne lalachas, like walk with Hashem. Like when we talk about Hashem, we're not talking about something outside of ourselves. We're talking about like living inward in such a way that that we're true and authentic to ourselves. Like, why are we doing this thing? Are we doing it to attract attention? Are we doing it to be noticed? Or are we doing it because it feels authentic to who we are and allows us to express a part of ourselves in a way that feels like it needs to be expressed? And only every person can answer that question in their own privacy of their home and their mind.
Which is why I also love the idea that the tznius of a woman is really based on how she feels, you know, like what feels natural to her. And that's why I think it's so important to reframe this whole concept of it's allowed, it's not allowed. What does the rabbi say? What does, you know, like a lot of giving the power away to everyone else to tell me how to live my life. And it totally distracts from the sensitivity of finding myself. Like what does feel right to me. You know, being a leader of my family, being the kayin of my family means I get to connect to myself and have that power, you know, empowering ourselves. And I feel like that's really what's shifting these days, is going away from you need to, you know, what you're told to do. And it's really a maturity, like from a child to an adult.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that there are halachas surrounding tznius. So there are halachas, and there's halachas for men also with tznius. And it's important to understand there are certain boundaries that we want to stay within. But then there comes to like a personal sense. And, you know, you can ask, and I you know, with shidduchim, it gets me so crazy when they like, you know, they're like, is she tznius? I'm like, do you want me to tell you if she's a modest person?
Right.
Or if her skirt is covering her knee? Like, because these are two different things. You know, they're not necessarily connected. Sometimes they are, but they're not always. There are some people who are very internally modest people, and they're not yet there to
100%.
wear the neckline, wear officially, or the sleeve. But internally, they live modestly. They're not about attracting attention. They're not about, hey, everyone, look at me. They're not. They're living in their way, and they have. Every person has. And you know, the thing with tznius is the tznius, and I don't like saying tznius as clothing because it's really not. It's just. But is that there's something very outward that people feel like they can judge. But it's really like, I think that when we educate our girls, you're a mother of a lot of girls, can I know her? So this is definitely a very relevant topic for you to think about. Like, how do we give this over to our children in a way that means something? Because we see that it's not working a lot of the ways that the girls are being educated, because it feels like rules that don't mean anything to them. Yeah, it feels like rules that are like ready to be broken almost, you know, like testing the boundaries instead of positioning it to like, of course there's like boundaries, right? So we do have boundaries, but we want to give, at least I want to give it to them as a relationship of how do you feel? Like, how is this making you feel? And so that hopefully it doesn't get to that place of needing to cross those boundaries. And maybe it will, you know, it's hard. Everyone has their journey, but I feel like when it's positioned as like authority versus empowering, you know, like this is your connection to Hashem. This is connection
just
to your
like
body.
covering the hair, right? When you're told to do it and you're doing it because of that versus doing it because you really get the beauty of the mitzvah. And we have to do both. We have to do it because it's a thing, but then we have to find the beauty in it.
Yeah.
I love the, we say this every day in tefillah, right? Targilenu b'sarasecha, v'sadbikenu b'mitzvasecha, that we should have that we should become accustomed to the Torah, that we should have like a hergel, like it should become a habit almost. And then v'sadbikenu b'mitzvasecha, and then comes the dvekus. And then comes the closeness. So sometimes it really does have to start with an imposed, like almost like this is part of who we are, this is part of how we live. But through doing that, it becomes embodied, it becomes a part of who we are, and then it leads us to become closer to ourselves and our authentic selves.
So it needs to have both elements.
We need both.
Right.
But I think for the conversation with girls, it's about living, like feeling good about themselves as people. And I think a lot of the issues with tznius really comes from girls feeling like maybe a lower self-esteem or less of a sense of the beauty of their inner world, and then almost feel like they need to use their outer self to gain attention and respect, but not recognizing that like it's really their inner beauty that they need to work on, and that's what's going to be their shining light. And it comes from the inner place. Like it always comes from a place of how we feel inside.
Right.
And the way we dress is a very powerful thing, because it's like it's covering, but it also reveals something about ourselves. And I think that's also when we cover our hair, that we're covering, but through covering, we're actually revealing something very powerful. We say this in the davening Friday night. Raza de Shabbos, this davening, it's in Aramaic, so no one knows what they're saying.
Right.
But it's the secret, it's a very Kabbalistic prayer that we say, and it's about the secret of the feminine, which is Shabbos. And in that tefillah, we say that and I'm not going to say it because I'm going to mix up the words because it's in Aramaic and it's confusing, but what is the secret that the covering is what reveals the radiance of the countenance. The countenance, through the secret, the countenance is revealed to be radiating the light of Hashem. So it's like the mystery of who we are, like, is how we express our beauty. Like through covering, we reveal our inner self. that's our majesty, that's malchus. That's like, when you give it all away, when you show everything and there's no mystery left.
And it's funny because we know this in, like anyone that's in the dating world or I don't know why I did that, but like anyone that's dating and is trying to like keep an allure or keep it exciting or what we use is like artificial games when really we have these divine systems within Torah, like nida. It's all created with that natural mystery.
Right. Exactly.
And the same with tznius. So even though we like, and I, because I've struggled this for so long, and even though we know it, like on a like intellectual level, like you don't want to give it all right away, and somehow it's the struggle with tznius is still there, even though it's like it would be smarter to to have that tznius and to be more hidden, like you said, like the feminine aspect, which is our nature.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating to
the nature of the feminine is the hiddenness. Like that's our mystery, that's our magic. Yeah. Is in like the part that people don't see.
Right.
And that's like when we it's like listen, if somebody walks into a business meeting in a bikini,
right,
we know this, no one's going to take them seriously, and no one's going to actually respect what they have to say. Everyone's going to be slightly distracted,
right.
We know this, but like still, like women are going to work half undressed,
right,
but like you want to be respected. If you're going to be the president of the United States,
right,
is not going to dress like that. The Queen of England, who, by the way, always covered her hair in public.
Wow.
Always. She always had a hat or something on her head in public. So there's the sense of like, if we want to be taken seriously and respected and considered, like, what are we showcasing? What are we showing of? And by the way, speaking to like, because there's with the Islamic things that are going on and people say, well, so why the face? And like, isn't the face? But like the face is actually where our neshama comes out. Our face is like, the face has to be shown. There's actually, when you see someone in a tichel, even in a hijab, by the way, like when you see someone whose hair is covered, there's like something, there's a majesty.
Yeah.
When you just see the face.
Like a beauty.
There's a beauty to that. And the face is, the word panim actually comes from the word pnim, which is inner. Because the face, like the eyes are the window to the soul. The face is panim, which is face, is actually in plural. It's a word that's said in the plural. Because a face is like multifaceted. The face is like where all of our expressions and all the complexity of who we are comes through. Whereas the body is like almost like one-dimensional, and it's like what you see is what you get.
Right.
And it's like distracting from your inner world. So this idea of like revealing who we are through covering, through concealing what would be a distraction or what would be, what would cause someone to relate to us in an external way or to objectify us.
Interesting. Yeah, it's not about hiding. Like we're not hiding our faces.
No. Yeah.
Right.
We're not hiding.
It's like we're leaning into our feminine nature.
Yeah.
And anything that I guess would be more revealing would be masculine.
Right.
Which is
that outward.
Nature. Yeah.
That outward, so I know people want to see women in leadership roles, and we are in many, many ways. But like we need to understand that our real power comes from the behind the scenes, comes from the power that we have to propel, to convince, to manifest things in our own, in a quieter inner way. So even though there is place for us, and I love that the Torah has these words, Zachar and Nekeva bara Isam, that every human is created with masculine and feminine energies, and we're not one-dimensional. So even if we represent femininity in this world by being a woman, there are still aspects of each person, and some people have more masculine traits and need the more outward expression, and they can find that. There are ways to express that, and there are men who have the more feminine and need to express that. But representing the Shekhinah, representing the feminine aspect of the divine in this world, is embracing our power of our innerness, of the Malchus, the majesty that we are, and
That is the beauty of our inner world.
I love this.
Cultivating that.
I love it. I feel like I'm re-inspired. It's amazing. It's so beautiful when we're able to first of all distill it down to like what it actually is, like the hair covering and who we are as women, and embracing it rather than just pushing so hard, resisting what is and trying to be something else.
Yeah.
Which is, and there's a space, like you said, there's a space to express those masculine traits if someone wants to. There's a space for it.
Right, there is a space for it, and there's a space to do it in a way that's tsanua,
right,
in a way that's modest. Which doesn't mean that we go with a burqa, you know?
Right.
It means that how are we expressing ourselves? Why are we expressing ourselves in this way? It comes from an inner place.
Wow.
And it comes from the inner desire to be seen, but not to be noticed for attention's sake.
Wow, that's so beautiful, so special. I know there's a lot of women that since October 7 have been wanting to connect more, wanting to be, to do something that's more meaningful and more connected to Hashem and to Judaism. And it's so special. Like I mean, I'm in the wig world, so I see it a lot where women are choosing to cover their hair, even just on Shabbos.
It's amazing.
Which is such a beautiful step.
Beautiful.
Such a beautiful step. I actually, connecting it to Challah, had a woman saying that she bought it she's making like a challah bake. So she was going to do the bracha when she was separating the challah. It was a topper, but it's also such a beautiful step.
Unbelievable.
And then she said later that she found out later that, obviously everything's connected. We don't know what's connected to what, but she found out later that one of the few of the hostages that were released that day that she did this bracha and the mitzvah, and she felt so she felt so invigorated by it. So
amazing.
It was, it's so special.
It's so amazing.
I know this I feel re-inspired, even though I'm in this wig world and I'm always searching and learning this stuff. I feel so good knowing everything you just said, hearing it, and feeling so much more like I'm gonna make challah soon.
You're doing it all today.
Yeah, Thursday.
I love it. Yeah.
Just thank you so much. This was so special. This was really
such a pleasure.
Like I'm excited for the women to hear this.
Yeah. And I'm excited for women to start embracing our power. Like this is when I travel around and I teach challah, and it's about like, and this is what got me into it, like was in my community with like all these women who are like high powered and had these amazing careers, and they were like coming to me and they were so broken and they felt so disempowered by trying to live in this masculine world and like trying to have to be male,
right,
to be powerful. And that's not our power. Our power is in our femininity. And when we embrace that, like when we understand how much light comes through us, when we cover or when we nurture, when we nourish, like that's where our inner light comes out. And like, we have so much power.
Right.
We have so much power. Like, so we
even though it may feel a little like disempowering, like, oh, it's just making bread or it's covering. Like there's a part of it that on the surface could feel less powerful than the masculine that's out there
in the
doing.
Framing. But the world has been celebrating the masculine, like result-oriented society. Like we need numbers and data, and it's been that way for so long, and like power was celebrated, right? But it's shifting now. There's a huge shift, and this is what the Zohar talks about in the times of Mashiach, right? Nekeva t'sayvev gever, that the surrounding energy of the world is going to be feminine in the times of Mashiach, and it's happening in front of our eyes. Like it's not anymore about the power; it's about the inner world is being understood so much more, and it's all the feminine qualities that are now being celebrated.
Even the feminine within men, within
absolutely,
masculine, is being
and
more,
maybe gone a little far, but and anytime there's movement in the world, sometimes it goes a little, and I have to like bring it back to center. But it is all part of this Mashiach reality that we're living in right now. So
it's amazing.
We just got to keep embracing that,
and leaning into our nature, our real nature.
That's it. That's the real leaning in.
Yeah.
You
That's
lean
so
into
beautiful.
what it means to be a woman.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.